So I watched the Peter McKinnon setup 2 days ago or so, and that's what we're gonna do. Color LED panels on the side. I'm gonna be shooting lures. The problem is I don't have the lures that I need. I have to go down to the boat and go get the lures, but first I need to do something else. All right. 1, 2, 3. Hi, bud. Big old mule. All right, at the boat. This is a Duckworth, by the way. They make great boats. And I photographed for them many times before. This one's a little dirty. Okay. To say that, yeah, I do shoot for some lure companies, but I'm not shooting for anybody. I'm just doing this for fun this weekend, so I'm going to be shooting a whole bunch of different lures. I'm just picking lures that are like really cool and colorful, and will look good as they hit the water. Let's go. The frisbee before we go anywhere. Okay, there we go. Yesterday, I shot these images right here. I want to be shooting on my Nikon Z6 for better ISO performance. Here's a couple things. We're just going to talk about the setup, but I'm actually going to switch from my GoPro to one of my Z6s with a proper microphone so you guys can have some better audio and hopefully it will just look better. So let's switch it up. All right, this is better. So I'm gonna get ready here. So yesterday I shot this, but it's not exactly the lures I wanted. I was watching the Peter McKinnon video 2 days ago, and I've seen this done with lures before. So I was sitting there and I was like, I should just do this and give it a go. I'm gonna talk to you about the camera gear first. I'm using a Sony 90mm macro lens. I'm using it on manual focus. This combination of lens and adapter, it's okay. The adapter does really well with the Sony 85mm f1.8 lens, but with this macro lens, it struggles. It struggles at 2.8 for some reason, but when you're in macro mode and you're nice and close, it works fine. So this video is not about this teleconverter though, but I'm using this lens. Some of you might be asking, why aren't we using strobes? Peter McKinnon, when he did his video the other day, part of that in that video is he was using consistent light. The benefit of strobes is you can freeze action at a lower ISO, you can use a lower shutter speed, so you can use a higher f-stop. Hopefully that's not too much information, but that is the best part about strobes. You don't have to crank up your ISO, you freeze motion. But for me, my strobes aren't fast enough for cycle time. So I would have to time it perfectly to get that one shot, one flash as the lure hits the water. I just don't own strobes that recycle that fast. And I'm not gonna go buy any because I don't use strobes really ever on any of my shoots. These things sit in my cupboards. So that's why I'm gonna use the LED panels. Here we go. So I'm gonna change it up. I'm gonna be putting this lens on the Z6 instead, so I can crank up to a higher ISO, because I want my shutter speed to be anywhere between 4,000th of a second to 8,000 of a second. So I'm gonna throw this on the tripod and then we're gonna go from there. Kind of cheap LED panels and they seem to work. This is really heavy to handhold. How do people vlog like this? That's crazy. Perfect, okay. Fish tank I got at thrift store for 30 bucks. There's some scratches and stuff on it, but again, my main section that I'm shooting is right in here, so I'm gonna do a quick little clean before we get going. They are super cheap. I bought them on Amazon, and the cool thing about them is if you want to change the temperature of them, you can just pop these panels off. And now I can have like a warmer temperature light in here. I've got 2 of these and they're rechargeable. Got another LED panel. Black cardboard here that I picked up at the art store. Inside here I just have like a cheaper LED panel and I have a magic arm coming out from it that's hooking it to this great little apparatus. Studio stuff. Boring studio stuff. So I'm gonna kind of just put this camera down and we're just gonna kind of get going on it. A trial and error, and I've got tons and tons of different types of lures that we're gonna throw in there, and I'm gonna do a reel too, I think. So This lure is a pike lure, and I'm just gonna use it because it floats. So I'm gonna kind of put it in the middle of the tank where I'll be dropping the lures in the middle of the tank and get my focus, check my focus. So one thing you need to keep in mind is when you're actually doing your focusing, you wanna make sure you focus under the water. Don't focus above. If you put your item and it's at the watermark, don't focus for the top part of the lure, focus under the water. All right, so here we are again. I'm gonna kind of try to drop it a little bit backwards because it seems to be flying forward. So I'll just do it a whole bunch. See where we get to. But above I'm getting a lot of dirt, so I gotta go in and kind of clean that a little bit. But I like what we're seeing so far. I think that it's working so far. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Kind of going sideways. This lure is a little harder because as I'm dropping it in, the lure keeps rotating. So I'm trying to do my best to kind of figure out a way to like launch it from further back a bit and then drop it and see if it kind of comes within range. It's lit very nicely, right at the water line. That looks really good. I mean, there's some nice images in here. Screen that I originally had on that camera, and I faced it towards me, and I started doing this just a little bit ago into the process, so now I can kind of focus better. I can see the focus peaking on the screen, so my focus nice and set there. I can even zoom in and I can see, and I want to get it perfectly on that Islander reel. Pretty good. Zoom out. Okay, here we go. Over 1,000 pictures of just dropping the reel and some flies and then some lures in the water. But I mean, I hope to get like 4 good images out of it. It's just all about timing, and like it has to fall perfectly. And so that's not always the easiest, but now my studio is an absolute disaster. I'm going to clean it up tomorrow. And then we'll look at the images. So check it out. Alright, so I'm going to edit this picture. It's kind of a fun picture. I believe this is a pike lure. If I'm wrong, I'm sure a whole bunch of people are going to correct me. So a couple things right away that you can see in the image is that the back part of the image has water beads on the back. So sometimes when the lure hit the water before it popped back up, I had these little water beads, and I did my best to clean them off, but you know, it was hard to kind of keep everything just right and perfect and then hit focus on the lure, because I pre-focused in manual. And also, as the day went on, the tank started getting dog hair in it, because I do have a whole bunch of dogs. So this is the image we're gonna work with, and I'm just gonna take you through. I hope this is not too boring, but I'm just gonna kind of take you through the way I edit real quick, and we'll roll from there. So I like to kind of boost my contrast. I'm gonna just bring up my exposure just a little bit, highlights down just a little bit, and shadows out. But you know, I'm going to be going in and kind of tweaking it, and you know, this isn't really meant to be like much of a tutorial in terms of my editing style. I'm going to go in and kind of give it a crop just to start with, and this is what I'm going to kind of work with. So I'm going to start here, and I'm actually just going to send it over to Photoshop. See some of the dog hairs down here. So first I'm going to go out and make a adjustment layer, just a layer to go on, and I'm going to take the healing brush, actually, sorry. I'm going to take the healing brush and go over just some of these little things that are quick and easy to take out kind of thing. And then we're going to kind of, just going to go over them nice and quick. The splash has just kind of gone outside of the frame. So, you know, I just wanted to take away some of the hairs here so we can start with a fresh image. All right, so here we go. This is the image thus far. So I'm going to just Control E, and that brings my, merges my layers together. And then actually, so I've got the tool on the other page here. I still like to use the Nik collection for certain things. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to run it through Color FX Pro. I really like Color FX Pro. I'm going to try to make this image pop a bit. I really am not going to do a ton to this particular image. I did some real shots, and I really had to make more background and foreground. So as you can see right away, when I add a vignette, and I grab the circle and I make it more of a rectangle, so it kind of goes like this more around the screen. As you can see right away, that really kind of cuts down on a lot of those, that background kind of spray that was over here on the sides. So I'm going to leave it like that. I actually like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add, you just press Add Filter. I'm going to add the Pro Contrast. So these are the ones I always use in my little arsenal when I am using Final Cut or FX Pro. Now I don't always use this program. I find for my commercial work, unless it's like a really special image that I really want to take time on, most of my stuff I'm not doing this. But these kind of images, I knew I was going to have to kind of Photoshop a bit. So, you know, I'm kind of playing with my sliders. I like to bring up my dynamic contrast, and as you can see, I like the way it's making the lure look, but I don't necessarily like it lighting up the background. So you take this little minus tool and kind of just, if you hold down the Alt Option key, you can copy the minus tool. So it's minusing it from all these areas here. So I'm kind of just rolling around here, getting it done. Going around the screen. Again, like, I come from quick kind of editorial editing, so I want to get this done, and I don't want to spend hours on it because, well, I think that's just a waste of time. So you can look at it now. You can see it's just a subtle difference. It lights up right here, right along that yellow, which is, I think, quite pretty. Okay, so add filter. I'm now going to go to color and balance. This is where I'm going to warm up the lure. I want to warm it up just a little bit. You can see that it then warms up all this, and I don't want that, so I'm going to go minus again. Alright, so I'm going to add one more filter. I'm going to go, I want to do the detail extractor. So it's going to come out really crazy. So I'm not going to extract that much detail out. So I'm going to bring it all the way back down, bring the contrast down, And so actually I just want to do, I'm going to do fine, or normal, sorry, and I'm just going to extract a very small amount. And again, I'm going to have to minus around the whole image. I just want the detail extraction on that lure, and I might, you see it, you know, I don't want it to be on it just kind of brings out the shadows is what this tool does. And it can be really amazing in certain situations and it worked really well. So I'm just kind of deleting, minusing, making sure that it's not on the parts that I want to keep. Okay, so again, it's just super subtle. So I'm going to press OK, and it's probably going to think about this for a while because I put a ton of little points down. So once that thinks, the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take it into the define tool is to cancel out noise. So it cancels out the noise. So right now, let's look at the beginning. So if we go all the way up to the top, the raw image that came in, and where we are now, all the way up to the raw image that came in, and again, where we are now. So some of these little outliers are kind of distracting. So I'm going to go in and just one more time, just make a layer there, go in with your healing brush, and I'm just gonna, actually I'm gonna go in with my clone tool, just make a selection and just kind of clone real quick. Alright. Did you know if you take your fingers and go on the Control Option key, hold them down and just drag, press your mouse down and drag, you can make your circle bigger? I don't know if, I'm assuming lots of people know that, but if you don't, that is a hot little tip. Turn this layer off, turn this layer on, turn this layer off, turn this layer on. I think it does look better now. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to merge everything together. You can use a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts for that. I'm just going to go flatten, and then I'm going to hit the define tool right here. So the define tool, it's going to measure my noise in the image, and then it's going to reduce it, and it's going to reduce it by way too much. So instead of messing with the settings, what I do is I let it reduce to what it thinks it needs to reduce to, and then I actually go in and I will just pull it back to so it's taking a sample of this area. So this side of it is the what it's reducing it to. That is the original side. So see how much it's reducing it by a ton. So I'm just gonna click OK because we're just gonna start with that. And again, don't worry, I'm not gonna actually let it be that much because that's a lot. That's a lot to reduce it by. So if I zoom in, now it looks like I put like a old 1980s soft filter on it. So you can see that it's reduced it by a lot. So first of all, I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna pull that back down. So right now, that has helped to soften it just a little bit. Just soften it by a little bit. And so I really like that. So I'm going to press Command E, and that merges the layers together. And then next I'm going to go to the output sharpener. So I really like the output sharpener. I think this tool, sometimes like when you get in here and you pull it across, you're like, holy crap, I was not actually sharp at all. So when you zoom in, and some people are like, well, you're just adding the noise again. I understand that, but I'm also going to do something different with that too. So by reducing the noise, some of it is I just wanted to reduce the noise in the black as well. So I'm just going to press OK, and we're going to go with it. So it's going to over sharpen it by a crazy amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask over a mask layer over it, and I'm going to fill it, and I'm going to fill it with black, so it covers and covers the whole image. And then when I go back to the lure, I'm just going to add it onto the lure, and then I'll adjust the opacity of it to see the opacity of it to see, you know, how much I want. So when I paint it back in, just on the lure, see how it brings the grain back of the lure, and let's see if we can get it on some of the hook. Just on the sides of the hook, not too much down there. And then I want it on the water too, because I want that water to look crisp and sharp and beautiful and just all the particles kind of sticking out. So let's get it on this too. Here we go. I really think that makes it pop. So sometimes if you don't sharpen the whole image and you just sharpen what you like to see, what you want the eye to be directed to, that can really make a big difference. Okay, so we're going to turn that off. We're going to turn that on. Let me zoom in. Off, on. Okay, so I'm actually going to just bring it down just a slight bit because I don't want it to be that powerful. So again, I'm just going to bring it down just a slight bit till I get it to where like I like it. And again, that's up to you, kind of how you feel about it. So I'm thinking this is looking pretty darn good. Let's go to the original. So that's where we started. Oops. That's where we started from. And this is where we are now. Okay. So again, Command E, I bring all the layers together. Now, a lot of people say that they really like to keep all their layers apart. I get it, but this is an image that I'm just really rolling through. I don't need to sit and really take a heck of a lot of time on each thing. I'm just kind of trying to get it done. So next thing I'm going to do is I want to kind of make this yellow a little bit pop. I'm going to paint in yellow. So this is always kind of fun. I like to go to the color balance, and I like to bring up the reds or the yellows. Now, I don't want it to be on the whole image, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be painting everything back in to where I want it, which is kind of fun to do when you're doing like stuff like this. So right now I have covered the layer of that color balance, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to lightly hand paint. I'm at 27. So I'm just going to hand paint that yellow in, and we'll see how much of a difference that makes. And paint it into the top of the water here. I think that looks really, really cool like that. Let's see here. Keep going. So where are we now? We're on that. See? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, next one I'm going to do the red. So I'm going to pull those reds up. And again, it makes the whole image red. So I'm going to go fill it. I'm going to fill it with black. And now I'm just going to go in, and with my brush tool, I'm just going to paint back those reds there because I just think that looks super cool. And I'm just trying to make these colors really, really pop. So, all right, so let's check that out. That's super, super subtle. And if you press Option Alt and you hold the layer, you can actually see where your mask is. So now I want to do blue because I kind of want to make that blue eyeshadow on this lure really pop out. So let's see if we can do that. So again, fill it, and let me just get back there. Oh, see, that really, really, really makes it pop. That looks cool. And a little bit of blue up here. I think that kind of might have been a little too much. I think that kind of brings it in. Okay. So I'm liking this. This is awesome. So now, next thing I'm gonna do is, and if you don't like anything, you just can press the X button, and that switches your black and white setting down here, and then you can kind of paint back out something if you've found you painted it too much. Okay, so I really, really like this again. So I might take a couple more. I'm gonna just press. I'm gonna flatten this layer again. And I'm going to go back to the clone stamp, and now I'm just going to clone out a couple more of these random little, so it really brings in your attention. Okay, so we are looking good. So again, let's go up to the top image. This is where we were. This is where we are now. Okay, I'm thinking that's looking great. So now the last thing I want to do is I actually want to bring out some highlights in specific areas and and shadows in other areas. So a good little thing, what you can do is you press the little plus sign for a new layer, and you press Alt Option, okay? And this new layer box pops up. And for blending mode, if you go down to Overlay, you get an option to fill with 50% gray. So click yes, click that, and then click OK. And you can name your layers. I don't. Again, it's for if I was working on like a big Photoshop edit, then I would. So I hit B for brush tool. Make sure you've got black and white. So black is for bringing down your shadows. White is for bringing up your highlights. And I want to put my flow really far down, like 3%, because this really makes a big difference. So right now I'm going to switch it, press the X key, and you can switch your black and white over here. I'm going to switch it to white. I'm going to zoom into my picture, and you're going to see what happens. It's basically, instead of using the shadow highlight tool, this is just a really good way to paint in your shadows and your highlights and control them. So I'm now going over and painting in, and let's just see here. Do you see that? I'm just painting in where I want these highlights to be. I'm gonna go to black now and do some of the shadows. So I can just kind of go in there and darken areas up. So it's basically like burning it in, which is kind of nice. Okay, and I want to bring that like dark stripe in the middle out. That will be kind of fun. Kind of grab each one of these. So it's only going to lighten the highlights and darken the shadows. So that's a nice thing. If I go over the highlight, it's not going to darken it. Okay, so let's turn this whole thing off. Let's turn it on. I think that looks great. So the last thing I'm going to do is I just want to make that lure just pop a little bit more. So I'm going to go down to adjustment layer. I'm going to go to curves. I'm just going to bring up the shadow just a hair. Like that's just a hair. But I'm also then going to fill it and again paint back on what I want you guys to see. So I want you guys to see this lure pop just a little bit along with this water. Just, you know, it's very, very subtle. Very, very subtle. All right. So here we are. See, very, very subtle. I can even go over it just a little bit more because I'm at 5% opacity. Keep that in mind. All right. Cool. So I like that. I really like how this image has turned out. And that water line that goes right across. I'm gonna show you, you know, before and after. You can see that that's a major difference. And you know what? Last thing I want to do is I want to bring up the saturation just a little bit because I really want this to be vibrant and just pop. So let's bring up the vibrance first. The vibrance of the lure and the saturation. Let's see what that looks like. Let's see what it looks like if I go crazy. Okay, so I don't want to go crazy. But let's see what that looks like. All right. And again, I think that looks great. And I'm just going to do a fill layer one more time because I don't want that to show up on the background. So I'm just going to paint it back onto the lure and the water here. All right. Cool. All right. So I'm going to I'm going to flatten the image and now I'm going to go to save as, and it's going to export it now back to Lightroom as a TIFF. So I'll just do fish lure. It's just good to name them so you don't fish lure 2 because this is the second one I've worked on here. Okay. And I just press OK. And then I'm going to close this image now. And I'm going to go back to Lightroom. Let's go back to the library. And here's the image as it slowly pops back up. And now let's look between, so 2 of 2. This is the first one. This is where I kind of made some light adjustments in Lightroom. If you remember, right at the beginning, made some light adjustments in there, sent it into Photoshop, and here we go. So I'm really happy with the way the images turned out from yesterday. A couple things though, like the benefit of flash really is you're able to stop the motion. You're able to stop the individual particles of water going up and the lure hitting the water. But I don't own flashes and strobes that are fast enough for cycle time. So that would have been dropping it and hitting it perfectly as it hit the water. So if you guys want to use flash for this, it's a great idea, but also you can't do burst rate. So you have to really be precise. And because I was dropping it and reaching back and having to click the shutter button, there was a lot going on. So, but I'm really happy with it, and I think that they turned out great, and it was a really fun little project to do. And again, like, it was Peter McKinnon's project that he was working on, and he posted on YouTube. And I've seen this done with lures and magazines before. So I shoot in the sports fishing industry, so for me, I just kind of wanted to try to do something that was more along the lines of what I deal with every day. So, and I don't do product shots. I'm more editorial on location. So if you guys like this, hit the like button and hit subscribe, I bet, I guess. You can subscribe if you want. I don't know. I'm going to try to make more videos. It's a little hard to make videos and film by yourself. I don't know how YouTubers do it. So yeah, that's it. Thanks, guys.